Let us move on. The protest movement that has seen thousands of people occupy areas around Wall Street is set to spread to London this weekend. Organisers say more than 4,000 people will flock to St Paul's Cathedral on Saturday afternoon before occupying an area in or around the London Stock Exchange. Joining us now is Tina Rothery, who is a planner from Occupy LSE movement. Tina, very nice to see you today. Now, look, there's plenty of anti-capitalism movements around. Yeah. Of course, Stefan is at the G20, and we know that that attracts its fair share as well. It certainly did in April 2009 in London. What exactly is it you're protesting against now?
We're protesting against the fact that the government doesn't operate in the way that the people expect it to. And I believe that that doesn't make a difference whether it's Labour or Conservative or which government it is. They just aren't performing in the way that we expect them to, which is on behalf of the people. It appears that each time a bank needs a bailout, we dive straight in there. Each time we have to compensate for that with a cut, it comes from us. So it's a worldwide feeling that our governments are not acting on behalf of the people, they're acting on behalf of the financial and the commerce district.
Okay, well, that's a broad brush statement. They're not acting on behalf of people. What should they be doing specifically, for instance? I mean, what's the plan of action? So in
2008, we gave, we made more money available, and we gave it to the banks in the hope that they would lend it out. They didn't. We haven't made them suffer for this in any way, shape or form, and last week we gave them another 75 billion. And why do we trust that they will do that? Why do we trust that they will put that back into the economy? They didn't last time. And no one has been penalised for this. And so why could we not have found a more creative way of putting that 75 billion back into our economy that benefited the people instead of the financial services getting their first cut?
Yeah, and I take your point to a degree, but also, don't you think part of the problem is actually that the banks did lend money indiscriminately, and that's what got us into the mess in the first place? The fact that the banks aren't lending people money on 100% of their mortgages, 120% of their mortgages, not lending businesses money on quite such a wanton way as they used to, isn't that actually a good thing?
Totally agree. Totally agree. The whole culture of lending was wrong. But then so is the whole culture of feeding it back in to feed that system. I don't necessarily want them to feed it back in and lend it back out. What I want them to do is get more creative. You know, I live in a world where I'm on the internet. I see the most amazing minds come up with the most amazing solutions. And we're not looking at any of them. We stick with the same tried and trusted. It's not looking for a revolution. I don't want to camp in a street. I really don't. I like my bed. I like my hairdryer. But, you know, I have a granddaughter who's 6, and I have a mother who passed away on May 5th. And she suffered at the hands of an underfunded NHS. My granddaughter goes to a school that is overcrowded. They're going to reduce school meals. She doesn't need to get them, but other kids I know do. They took away the money that they were giving the teenagers to get to high school. Admittedly, they should never have given them £30 a week. They should have given them a bus pass and maybe food vouchers. There's no intelligence happening in our government, but there's intelligence elsewhere. So why are we not sourcing that instead?
Tina, there are a lot of angry people in this country, as there are in many other countries, and you've mentioned a range of issues that you yourself have got strong feelings about here. And isn't that always the danger with these kind of events, that what you get is a broad conglomerate of people with different issues? They're anti-capitalists, they're anarchists, they're all sorts of things.
And that's the problem, you see.
And that doesn't actually focus pressure on the government then to do anything, because they just write you off. They say, oh look, you know, bunch of nutters.
Yes, yes. And they only film the ones who've already been there for a few weeks and look a bit grubby, because naturally they would. They've been on the street for a few weeks, not necessarily homeless or junkies or hippies.
2 days camping and Jeff looks grubby, trust me.
I've got to look hell after day one without
I don't believe that.
But I mean, just on the point, you know, what can you actually achieve in this kind of event where governments or the politicians find it very easy to write you off because there tend to be a plethora of issues that people are there for?
They do, and that has been the problem in the past. In 2006, I set up an anti-war group called Arms Against War as a result of going to a peace conference in London and being so distressed to see different colours, different groups. And I thought, can we not just all agree we want an end to the war? As opposed to, it must be a socialist or a Christian or a female or this or that. Why should it be all these disparate things? So on this thing, oddly enough, I think we actually have just about cornered it, because just about everyone is saying the government is not operating in the way it should. It is on the side of the financial and business sector. Lovely, I understand that at certain times, but they're not considering us at all, and they're not being creative enough with the solutions. And that is, no one's disagreeing with that one point. All the other points they have, I don't care.
Why do you think the government did what it did, rather than doing what you'd like it to do?
I believe that the way we the way our governments operate as a system, and the way that our elections and our campaigning is funded, is not on our side. I believe it's on the side of the people who fund the government, or who fund the election campaigns, and who promote the politicians. And I believe it's a case of, once they get there, they're going to have to do something back for these people. And that's not right, and it's wrong. And I think if you're not protesting and you're not angry, then you're probably not paying enough attention, because how could you not be? You know, the loss of pensions, the cuts that we're experiencing, whilst there are still bank bailouts and we're still handing money to them to solve the problem for us.
You know, Tina, I think you'll find, contrary to the stereotype, that many people, even in the financial industry, have a lot of sympathy for many of the sentiments you expressed out there. Incidentally, returns to labour and returns to capital have diverged not just for 5 years or 10 years, but for the last 40 years. Returns to capital have been much higher. That typically results in pretty drastic political change. Are you and your group hopeful of something along those lines, not just in the UK, but if you were to hazard a guess, elsewhere, do you think the politics in the global economy is likely to change?
I think that if we go with the old solution, and see, I thought when I was coming here, I thought, shall I prep and know numbers and things? And no, I shouldn't. I'm a grandmother, I'm a writer. I'm not really, that's not my job, that's yours. Sure. You know figures and statistics, and so does the government. And they feed them to me all the time. And what I've got to say is, I've accepted that for this long. And now I'm looking at it, I'm going, I'm sorry, I can feel this affecting my life. So no matter what numbers you give me, how much they say they've put back in, I'm not seeing it. And I've been watching, and I am in touch with every sector. I have lived with generations. I see how it affects the old, the young, the teenagers in high school. And so, no, nothing anyone can say is going to make me believe that the old solutions will work again. And no matter how many figures they put back in, they say they put back in, they put it back in the wrong way. And first of all, they're handing it out the wrong way.
Just a quick one for me. Why are you doing it on Saturday afternoon? Surely the maximum impact would be during the working week.
Common cause. Yeah, everyone says this. Now, the point being, it is not a one-day protest. This is an occupation. And so, in Wall Street, for instance, you get a huge surge at the weekend of people joining, but not everyone, no one can spare the time. We spend our lives working very, very hard to earn a living and pay taxes.
So, do we know what site you're going to be having the camp at?
We're aiming, well, we have problems because the London Stock Exchange is, of course, a private structure. And then we run up against the problem, which is how illegal are you willing to be when you don't, when the people who made the laws are not people you trust? So how seriously do you take the law? But you have to, because no one really wants to spend time in prison. So I believe we'll meet somewhere near St Paul's.
Somewhere near St Paul's. And how long are you going to be there for?
As long as it takes.
Best of luck. Okay. Well, I mean, I'm sure we'll get Jeffrey to come along with a cup of coffee for you, and then
please,
and maybe a portable hairdryer.
A portable hairdresser.
he could.
Small masseuse.
Jeffrey could do without his hairdryer just for a couple of hours, couldn't you?
Tina, thanks so much.
Thank you so much for the time. Really
Tina
enjoyed
Rothery,
the forum.
planner of Occupy LSE.
Yep. We're going to move on. For more on these protests around the world, head to cnbc.com and look for our Occupy Wall Street special.